All right, we're going to start things off simply today. We're going to have obviously a lot of writing in this English 1101 writing class. So let's jump right in and talk about what the first assignment is going to be, what some of the goals are. Pretty universally across my classes, I try very hard to make the first assignment a little bit less of a pain and try to grade it a little bit more in a forgiving fashion as opposed to a fashion. At the same time, though, I would kind of like to set the bar a little high for 1101 this semester. I want to go ahead and just jump straight into one of the most difficult topics we can write about, but we're going to do this in a very special, slow way. I want to talk about politics. Now, I'm sure I don't have to explain to you guys just how perilous and kind of nightmarish it is to talk about politics. Especially right now, we live in an incredibly volatile time politically. The introduction of the coronavirus into everyday life has also not made this better. It's made it 10 million times worse. So oftentimes people will just straight up avoid politics in everyday conversation. A lot of times I've run into situations where I would like to talk politics and people just simply won't engage with it. In fact, my dad used to always say it's impolite to talk about politics in general company. The opinion on that, well, I understand it. I acknowledge it. But as a person who studies communication and philosophy, it's problematic. This is a part of the reason that we struggle so much to discuss politics in casual settings, and why the actual subject has become as volatile as it has is because people don't understand how to navigate this sphere without like throwing pies at each other. This is a sphere that education needs to go into. We need to teach people how to do this in a constructive and respectful way. That does bring with it a certain amount of risk, though. There have been plenty of times in my classes where a political discussion turns into a pie throwing contest, right? And everything just kind of sort of breaks down and everybody gets angry. And those types of discussions are actually kind of important, though, because we avoid those situations as much as we possibly can. When you avoid them, you don't learn how to properly deal with them. You don't develop coping mechanisms. You don't develop patience. You don't stop to listen to what other people are saying. The overall unpleasantness of that interaction makes us run away from it with our, just screaming like a bunch of crazies. We have to do this. We have to develop the propensity to discuss political things without murdering each other. Now, the big question is, how do we do this? How do we do this in a productive way? And thank goodness, that's my responsibility as an instructor, to give you an environment where you can explore with these topics and feel safe. Now, I have a couple of things that I do in my face-to-face classes in order to grease the wheels on this. It's going to be a little bit of a different beast in an online forum. One of the things I do in my face-to-face classes is I will take the side of anyone who is in a vast minority. So if you're arguing something incredibly unpopular and the entire class is like, what's wrong with you? Why are you so terrible? I'll typically come to your defense, not because I agree with you, but because I think it's important for people to hear ideas that they really disagree with, and people need to feel that they have the freedom to speak and be heard. I've gotten really good at defending some rather extreme political viewpoints, but it's something I do in situations where students are surrounded. I don't know if that's going to necessarily be the case in the discussion forums, but we'll see. If you're saying something in a discussion forum and every other student's lining up to beat you over the head with a hammer, I'll come to your defense. You might have to let me know that it's going on, but I'll come in and try to run interference for you. That's my role as an instructor. I'm supposed to create an educational environment where you feel comfortable saying what you think. Let's take a different approach for this first assignment, though. Let's actually kind of sort of dip our toes into this water first. what I want you to do to begin this assignment, and don't worry too much about what this thing is going to look like when we're done, because we're going to go through a process. We're going to create drafts, and these drafts are going to be submitted in different ways. So what I want you to do, and let's put a tentative due date on this. Let me write this down on my handy dandy notepad here. We do have a holiday on Monday. Let's put the due date for this particular exercise on as Tuesday. I'm going to have to record all of these videos again when I teach this class again, but that's okay. I like giving you guys kind of personalized interaction. So we're going to say Tuesday, May 26th. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to ask a question about politics. I'm hoping that this means that we might be able to avoid some of the less pleasant consequences of doing political discussion. We'll be able to sort of slowly wade into this very stinky pool, right? We'll be able to acclimate ourselves to it first. Now, that's a very general question. So let me give you a few examples. A question does not necessarily have to be offensive, and it doesn't have to be confrontational. I'm going to try to go both sides of the aisle here, because in America, we have a very polarized political discussion right now. It doesn't have to be that way, but that's kind of the way things have evolved in America at the moment. Why do Democrats want to raise the overall tax rate? I feel that's a pretty fair question. Your question might make assumptions that aren't correct. That's okay too. That's why it's a question. Let me think of some other ones. Why do Republicans want to cut health care? That's a fair question, even though the premise is problematic, right? You'll notice that I'm kind of pulling these out of the air. These questions themselves could ignite political ire. Well, that's not what they want to do. It's a question. A question implies a lack of understanding about something, and it doesn't necessarily state an opinion, right? Let's get a few more out there. Why does a certain subset of the population feel we need less gun rights as opposed to more? There's so many interesting ones. And if you want to take one of these and try to add on to the question, you may, right? You can steal one of these directly or come up with one of your own, but you are going to have to add to it. Let me just come up with a few more. Why does the media seem to adopt a hostile attitude towards a good deal of the material that Donald Trump says? That's a pretty fair question, too. Why does Donald Trump adopt a hostile attitude himself to the media? Again, these questions have embedded opinions in them. That's okay. They are questions. So, once you have your political question, it could be about policy, it could be about political party, it could be about philosophy, it could be about foreign. It doesn't necessarily have to be American affairs. Why does Europe rely so heavily on a more socialist system, right? Why are their taxes so high? It doesn't even necessarily have to be so serious. I think a legitimate question could be, why are liberal comedians so unfunny? I personally think they're hilarious, but questions, right? Now, here's what I want you to do. I want you to come up with your question, and I want you to expand upon this question. And I want you to tell me, or really tell the class, why this is something that has come up for you. Why is this something you're curious about? I'm going to write these down for me so I can keep track of it. A lot of times you'll notice I come up with assignment ideas and I come up with assignment parameters and guidelines within the course of the video. Again, that kind of gives you the flavor of being taught, of having someone who's actually shaping policy as I think about delivering the topic. I personally just think that kind of makes an online class just a little bit more intuitive and a little bit more, I don't know, interesting. So I want you to give me a good solid, and this is ambitious, I know. Hold your breath. I want you to give me a good solid 10 sentences that's surrounding this question, to give me background, to tell me why you want to know this question, why the concept confuses you, and what your expectations are with an answer and all of this stuff. This is a very high bar to set. If you don't make 10 sentences, don't panic. We're going to consider this a first draft. I'm not going to grade this. This is preliminary material that we're getting out in the form of a discussion. You will post your question in the political question discussion forum, which I will make today. I want you not necessarily to answer someone's question, but to comment on it. I'll be in the discussion forum as well occasionally. I'm not going to respond to everyone, but I will try to participate and come in, especially if I see conflict brewing. So that it's a pretty simple task for this first week. One of the things that you could do to try to help you formulate this question would be to go to a couple of news websites. Maybe I'll post a few links in the discussion forum that go both sides of the aisle, right? We all know there's bias in the news. So I'll try to give you, oh gosh, live recording. I'll give you some news that comes from different aspects of bias. And you could go look at the headlines and you can formulate your questions from there. Almost any question involving the news right now is going to be political. You'll also notice everything is political in some way or another. Video games have become political. Comic books have become political. Wrestling has become political. I know, right? Did you guys see this match, though? This year's WrestleMania? It was great. My wife gets me wrestling t-shirts for my birthday, and it's like all I ever want to wear. Anyway, very simple, very straightforward first task leading up to an assignment that will be due in a couple of weeks. This is a big risk to go first thing with the semester, but I like to set a kind of, not antagonistic, that's more a challenging tone for our classes. Be respectful of each other in the forums. Don't attack each other. Try to look at these as questions and not statements. All right. I know that that's a little difficult. I think that this can be a very good exercise for us all. And we're going to use these questions as the basis for a much longer paper later. I'll give you the parameters for that after I've seen what you guys cook up in this discussion forum. What a fun first week of class. Man, I'm so good at this. I might not be saying the same thing next week when I come and look at the discussion forum responses, but you know what? That's fun too. All right, you guys have an excellent day and happy political writing. Okay, so I got the 11.